War in Europe, 1942. In North Africa, the British advance continues towards El Agheila. The Russian winter counter-offensive pushes back a frozen and exhausted German army from the gates of Moscow. Known as the Second Happy Time, German U-boats begin attacking shipping along the east coast of the USA. During the period from January to August, 609 ships were sunk for the loss of only 22 U-boats. The convoy system has not yet been implemented. There is no blackout on seaside towns, which illuminates ships. The US is desperately short of escort vessels. With fresh troops and new tanks, Rommel's counterattack surprises the British Eighth Army and he captures Ajdabiya. In preparation for the invasion of Europe, the first of 1.5 million American troops begin arriving in Great Britain. Rommel recaptures Benghazi and halts his attack. For the next few months, both German and British forces will rest and rearm. The United States automobile industry stops producing cars and starts producing jeeps, tanks and planes. The Channel Dash, German battleships Scharnhorst, Gneisenau and heavy cruiser Prince Eugen slip out of Brest unnoticed by the British. Expecting them to navigate the English Channel by night, their arrival in daylight puts the British attack groups out of position. Only 5 motor torpedo boats were available to attack the battleships, but they were unable to penetrate the screen of fighter planes, E-boats and destroyers. 6 Fairey Swordfish torpedo planes, without their Spitfire cover, attack through a murderous wall of gunfire. None return. In Britain, in addition to the existing severe rationing, electricity, coal and gas are rationed. Coal would continue to be rationed for 13 years after the war. The RAF bombs Ludwig, a port with shipbuilding yards, but also a cultural centre. 80% of the medieval centre is destroyed. Hitler is outraged. British commandos ram HMS Campbelltown into the dock gate at St Nazaire. It is loaded with high explosive. It detonates, destroying the dry dock gate, putting it out of action for the remainder of the war. Hitler issues Directive 41, the plan to seize the Russian oil fields and attack Stalingrad. To honour its brave citizens, Malta is awarded the George Cross. Belatedly, a blackout is enforced along the US eastern seaboard, depriving U-boats of background illumination when attacking ships. Malta is desperately short of food, fuel and ammunition. USS Wasp delivered 47 Spitfires to Malta. Short of fuel, they land in the middle of a massive Axis air raid. Many are destroyed on the ground. In revenge for the British bombing of Lubeck, a furious Hitler orders the bombing of British historical cities. These include Canterbury, Exeter, Bath, Norwich and York. Using the Beiderbecke Guide to Great Britain, these cities were chosen because of their cultural and historical significance. They had no strategic or military value. Italy commits an additional 7 divisions, including the 2 already promised to fight on the Russian front. The US carrier USS Wasp and HMS Eagle deliver a second consignment of Spitfires to Malta, giving the RAF air supremacy over Malta. Daylight bombing on Malta stops. Somewhat relieved, Churchill sends a signal to USS Wasp. Who says a wasp can't sting twice? The Red Army initiate a major offensive and capture Kharkov from the Germans. The US 1st Armoured Division arrives in Northern Ireland to begin training on the moors. The Red Army retreats from Kerch, abandoning the Crimea. The Germans destroy 9 Soviet divisions. Churchill refuses to agree to Molotov's demands that, following the war, Russia takes large tracts of land from Poland and the Baltic states. In the early hours of the morning, Rommel attacks the Gazala line, west of Trebuk. On a moonlit night, the African Corps storm past the Free French Brigade and smash through the 3rd Indian Motorised Brigade. SS leader Reinhard Heinrich is attacked in Prague by Czechoslovak soldiers trained by the British SOE. Heinrich would later die from his wounds. Trapped in a church crypt, rather than surrender, the soldiers kill themselves. The first British 1,000-bomber air raid drops bombs on Cologne. Hamburg had been the primary target, but due to poor weather over Hamburg, it was changed to Cologne. Rommel's attack on Tobruk is halted by fierce resistance from the 1st and 7th Armoured Divisions, equipped with the new Sherman tanks. The British launch a major attack against Rommel's forces. Rommel has established an excellent defensive position and the attack fails. Lidice, a Czech village, is destroyed and all males killed to avenge the killing of SS officer Heinrich. 2 convoys carrying urgently needed supplies sail for Malta, one from the east and one from the west. Black Saturday. Rommel destroys much of the British armour and surrounds forward positions on the Gazala line. The convoys converging on Malta suffer heavy losses. 1 convoy gets through, but 4 of the 6 supply ships are sunk. The Manhattan Project commences. It builds on work the British have already done to produce an atomic bomb and includes British scientists. Rommel attacks Tobruk with overwhelming air support. Tobruk falls. Convoy PQ-17 sails from Iceland to Archangel in northern Russia, carrying vital war supplies. Wrongly expecting an attack by a German battle group which included the battleship Tirpitz, Convoy P-17 is ordered to scatter. Without their escorts, 23 of the 37 ships are sunk. Rommel's African Corps and Italian forces cross the Egyptian frontier and take Mersa Matra. Rommel reaches El Alamein. The Suez Canal, the British naval base at Alexandria and Cairo are all in danger. Rommel's African Corps and the Italian army attack the British defences at El Alamein. The battle would last for 27 days. Exhausted British, Australian, New Zealand, South African and Indian troops fight Rommel to a standstill. The Battle of Stalingrad begins. It would last for over 6 months. While taking part in Operation Pedestal, aircraft carrier HMS Eagle is hit by 4 torpedoes from German U-boat U-73 and sinks in 4 minutes with heavy loss of life. General Bernard Montgomery takes command of the 8th Army in North Africa. Montgomery would not be hurried by Churchill. He builds up and trains his forces and ensures he has superior numbers of men, tanks, guns and aircraft. Operation Pedestal. 12 merchant ships with an escort of 2 carriers, 2 battleships, 2 cruisers, 14 destroyers, fight their way to Malta. Only 4 merchant ships and 1 severely damaged tanker, strapped between 2 ships to stop her from sinking, make it. Admiral Donitz orders his U-boats to withdraw from the US Atlantic coast due to the increasingly effective American convoy system. The Dieppe raid. Canadian and British forces land on the French coast at Dieppe. The element of surprise is lost when the assault craft run into a German Navy patrol. The assault of a heavy fortified and forewarned port is a disaster, with heavy losses, especially amongst the Canadians. The German army takes Rostov-on-Don. The Red Army is in a general retreat along the Don River. The RAF drops 14,000 incendiary bombs on Dusseldorf, centre of the German steel, engineering and armament industry, causing widespread damage. Field Marshal Rommel leaves North Africa for medical treatment in Germany. At Peenemünde, Germany launches the V-2, the world's first long-range guided missile. It reaches a height of 84.5 kilometres and becomes the first man-made object to reach space. Commando raids such as that at St. Nazaire enrages Hitler so much that he orders the execution of all captured British commandos without trial. The Second Battle of El Alamein begins with a massive artillery bombardment on the German positions. The Australians advance. Operation Torch. US Navy Task Force 34 sails from the United States for North Africa. Rommel, who had been convalescing in Germany, quickly returns to North Africa, his replacement having died of a heart attack. Preceded by a massive artillery bombardment and cutting corridors through the enemy minefields, Operation Supercharge begins. British tanks make a critical breakthrough west of El Alamein. Only a courageous defence by Italian units prevents Rommel's African Corps' complete destruction. German and Romanian troops capture Alamein. The further south the Axis would advance. Operation Torch, the US and British invasion of Morocco and Algeria begins. It was hoped that the French would support the Allied cause. They did not. They stubbornly resisted and attacked Allied military forces. On the 10th of November, British Commonwealth forces capture Sollum. On the 11th of November, they reach Bardia. On the 12th, Trebuk, and on the 18th, Benghazi. Montgomery is knighted and made a full general. Churchill gives his speech. This is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end, but it is, perhaps, the end of the beginning. Germany and Italy invade Vichy, France, in violation of the 1940 Armistice Agreement. Tobruk is recaptured. 30,000 German and Italian prisoners, including 9 generals, are taken. British Commonwealth forces chase the retreating African Corps 130 miles in 2 days. The Red Army launches a massive counterattack at Stalingrad. 500,000 Russian troops with 900 tanks and 1,400 aircraft encircle 200,000 Axis troops. In the US, an international team led by Enrico Fermi conducts the world's first nuclear reaction. Rommel abandons his stronghold at El Agheila and retreats into Tunisia. Operation Winter Storm, the Germans attempt to break through the Russian lines to relieve the 300,000 German soldiers trapped in Stalingrad. They fail. The Battle of the Barents Sea, heavy cruiser Admiral Hipper and 3 destroyers, and heavy cruiser Lutzow and 3 destroyers converge on Arctic convoy JW-51B. Fought in the darkness of an Arctic winter, it was a stunning British victory. As 1942 came to a close, things looked much brighter for the Allies. Rommel is trapped in Tunisia, and the German Sixth Army is trapped at Stalingrad.